Welcome to the Third Editors Forum. I'm Elizabeth Davis, Voice reporter. We're here today at the Lib Dem headquarters in Westminster to discuss who is best suited to be the Mayor of London. Let's see what sort of responses we get. Should be an interesting discussion.
Or good afternoon. Can I just welcome you to one of the Voices Editors Forum. First of all, I'd like to say that thank you very much, Brian, for accommodating us in this forum. The topic today is obviously who's best suited to be the Mayor of London. Brian, what I'd like to just ask you is, apart from all the general things which will be part of your remit to be, if you were to be the Mayor of London, one of the real big ones, which I can tell you right off the bat, is the fact that there's big issues to do with the policing, which you are well aware of, being an ex-commander, chief commander in Brixton. What are your views on that particular first issue?
I mean, can I first say that one of the proudest moments of my career in the police, I got removed from the police in Brixton by the Commissioner. And a week later, I'd done a big interview with a national newspaper, and I went down to Vauxhall to my paper shop to buy a copy of the paper I'd done the interview in. And there was this big headline, "Bring Back Paddick," on the front page. Except it wasn't the paper I did the interview with, it was The Voice.
Oh, thank you.
And Lee Jasper, who will be well known to a lot of people in the black community, said that he didn't think anybody in Brixton trusted the police until I became the police commander there. And you know, I'm very proud of the history that I have with the black community. Let me be very clear here, there is a problem with racism in the Metropolitan Police. I know, because I know the system, that very, very few allegations of racism actually become substantiated enough for the police to admit that an incident has actually happened. And therefore I would say that where you take together the 12 cases that have become made public, plus the disproportionality in stop and search, indicates to me that we still have a serious problem with racism. We still have a serious issue with the reputation of the Metropolitan Police amongst the black community. I was at Hustings the other day, at a debate the other day, and Ken Livingstone said, well, you know, there's racism in society, so you're going to get racism in the police. Well, I'm sorry, but, okay, yeah, there is racism in society, but people, ordinary members of the public, don't have the power to stop and search people. They don't have the power to use force against people. They don't have the power to arrest people. The police do. And that's why there needs to be a zero tolerance attitude to racism in the police. And I know from experience, Ian Blair, previous commissioner, very liberal, wanted to change the culture of the police, but he did not have the vocal, upfront backing of the mayor, neither Ken Livingstone nor Boris Johnson, to drive through the changes that he wanted to make in the police. And I know that Bernard Hogan-Howe, with all his fine words, will fail as well unless the mayor, the next mayor of London, stands up and says, this is unacceptable to Londoners and we must do something about it. And that is what I'm determined to do.
Thank you very much.
So, for example, in 2004, I did a report for the police called It's Time to Face the Realities of Stop and Search. And in that report, I set out practical steps, behavioural changes, to make sure that stop and search was targeted on criminals, not on people because of the colour of their skin. And that report was binned, was ripped up by my bosses. But it is a practical guide. It's a 12-page report. I can send you a copy of it.
Please,
A practical guide as to how you can take the racism out of stop and search.
Yeah.
How you can focus on the accurate description of someone who has just committed a crime. How you can focus it on criminals rather than on because of the colour of the skin. And that's got to be an important first step. Police officers have got to get away from this idea of stereotyping black people as criminals. You know, they walk down the street, they see a young black man, in their heads they're thinking criminal, they're thinking street robber. Yeah? In fact, that young black man is more likely, statistically, to be a victim of crime than to be a perpetrator of crime. It is a tiny minority of black people who commit crime, and yet the police target young black men for that sort of stop and search. It's the same with the Anti-Terrorism Act. You know, Muslim people are more law-abiding, maybe, than the general population, and yet they are looked at as potential terrorists. And we have got to change that mindset. And it's simple, it's simple. Statistically, this man in front of you is more likely to be a victim than a perpetrator of crime, so why are you stopping and searching him?
The police are already joining the force, already with the mindset of racism anyway. And I think that's where the core is coming from. It's the why. Why are they doing it?
Yeah.
And that's literally because they are already racist, and it gives them, I suppose, perhaps the license to, or they believe the license to do what they do.
But the thing is, why do they go into the police with that mindset already? It's because you do not have politicians standing up, as the mayor should have done, that Ken Livingstone should have done, that Boris Johnson should have done, saying, this is the picture. This is the picture. The picture is black people are disproportionately represented as victims of crime rather than perpetrators of crime. We have got to get away from this myth that if you take a young person at random on the streets, that they are likely to be a street robber as opposed to be more likely to be the victim of street robbery. The message is not going out there. Racism has fallen off the political agenda, and we need to put it back.
There seems to be a focus on young people, on crime. What about businesses? I mean, do you feel that, let's hear your views on businesses and how we could generate more jobs, more small business, micro businesses, small businesses?
I want some analysis done, because there is a suspicion that there is a discrimination against young people, against black businesses, that banks are less likely to lend to those sorts of businesses.
And women.
And women, exactly. And what we need to do is that we need to create a level playing field, as I call it. I'm not talking about, positive discrimination in favour of women-led businesses, black-led businesses. What I'm talking about is making sure that if the business case is as good for a woman-led business, a black-led business, as it is for another business, that they get an equal opportunity to be lent the money in order to develop their business as the white businesses are. So, it is, it's very difficult, as we talked just now, to change culture, to change attitudes. Yeah? But what you can do is that you can intervene to change behaviours. You can intervene to make sure that the banks are being fair in the way that they lend money, even if it means that we have to set up our own fund in order to fund these sorts of businesses to make up for the discrimination that there is in the private sector.
I know at the last Hoskins, one of the big issues that was talked of was the cutting off the funding for young people.
The education maintenance allowance.
Yeah. I mean, could you do anything to assist in that area? Young people education.
It's very important to help young people stay in education, but to think that colleges, and I think 30 million, he said, this is Ken Livingstone, said 30 million was going to come from colleges, and over £100 million from universities, that they were going to voluntarily give up this money to put into education maintenance allowance. Well, for a start, universities only take students from 18 upwards. EMA is for 16 to 18-year-olds. Why would they give up £100 million to pay for students that they don't even take on themselves? It's just complete nonsense. The important thing about EMA is colleges and schools still have money that they're given by government to support the poorest students, the students who really need help with their education. It's a form of EMA. Okay, it's not universal, not everybody gets it, but it makes sure that if there are students who are thinking about whether or not they can afford to go into further education because of their family circumstances, that their current school will know about this fund that is being held by sixth form colleges and other people that can help these young people to continue with their education. I honestly believe that there is no young person in London who should have to give up education for 16 to 18 simply because of the abolition of EMA, because if they really cannot afford, if they really feel that they have to go out to work, that money is there still, that the government is still giving to those educational establishments in order to support those young people.
So couldn't we say that it would be easier to simplify the process in which the colleges and further education establishments actually manage the money? Because there seem to be so many schemes and grants available, but nobody seems to know about it because the bureaucrats make it just far too complicated.
Yeah, I mean, we need to make it as easy as possible, and it shouldn't be the young person that has to apply for this. And what I want to see is I want to see the heads of schools, that take young people up to the age of 16, being able to apply on behalf of those students who want to go into further education, to A-level 17, 18, want to go on to college, do an apprenticeship, whatever it is. I want to see the heads of colleges actually being able to apply on behalf of those young people rather than leaving it to the young people themselves. It's absolutely essential. The reason why I'm a Liberal Democrat is that I honestly believe Liberal Democrats are the only party who genuinely want to narrow the gap between rich and poor. The gap got wider under the Tory government. It got even wider still under 13 years of Labour. And Liberal Democrats in government have been doing a lot to try and narrow that gap. The difficulty is we were left in a terrible financial situation by the outgoing government. The outgoing Treasury Minister or whatever it was left a note in the drawer saying there's no money left. Not only was there no money left, there was a huge overdraft. Yeah? And unfortunately, we have to pay that money back. And we've seen the consequences of not paying that money back. The rate at which the government is allowed to borrow money goes up. That means everybody's interest rates go up. Everybody with a mortgage has to pay more and all of that. That's what's happening in Greece, that's what's happening in Spain, what's happening in Portugal, what's happening in Ireland. We have to pay that money back, and that means everybody has to contribute their bit. And middle class families, in terms of paying a bit more back in terms of tuition fees, is one of those consequences. I think the Mayor should have more say over education. The Mayor has responsibility to iron out health inequalities across London. And I think the Mayor should have responsibility for ironing out educational inequality across London. So, helping or intervening even where there is poor education or where the education system isn't meeting the needs of particular groups of individuals. Second thing, we need the schools and colleges to work closer with businesses to make sure that the skills that employers need are the skills that young people are taught in school, so that when they finish school or college, they are more employable than they were before. And sometimes that will mean giving extra, if there is discrimination in the job market. Absolutely. You look at the number of young black men who are unemployed versus the number of white young men who are unemployed in London, it's much higher amongst young black men. That means even giving doing positive action to make sure that employers have no choice but to take on the black candidate, because the black candidate is better qualified than the white candidate in any competition. But what we also need to do, you're right, is to work with schools and colleges when these young people are about to leave and to go onto the job market, to make sure that they can access the sort of services that you do. The other issue for me is a big issue, is giving young people a second chance. There are too many young people in London being written off by employers because they have a criminal record. And we need to do a lot more in terms of advocating the taking on of people who have got previous convictions by employers. you know, we all make mistakes when we're young. Everybody is entitled to make mistakes when they are young, but to be forgiven for those mistakes and to be given a second chance. And it's in the same way that employers are shooting themselves in the foot in terms of not taking on people because they're black or because they're female, or in the same way, if they refuse to take on people who've got previous convictions, there are some very, very intelligent, very talented people in all of those groups. And if you unreasonably discriminate against those people, you are denying yourself access to some of the most talented people.